Welcome to Finding Peace in the Middle of Chaos. Stress Conquering Secrets from the movie Inception. In this course, you're going to learn what you're feeling, the physical repercussions of what you're feeling, the emotional repercussions, how to regain control, and final recap. You're going to walk away from this with the understanding that you no longer have to be held prisoner by your emotions. That you can thrive instead of strive in the middle of chaos. That you can see stress coming, neutralize it before it hijacks your entire day, indeed your entire life. You'll learn how to position yourself to hit the ground running at the end of the chaos. Who am I and what do I know about transformation? Well, I'm Dr. Linda F. Williams. I'm the founder of Who's Apple Dynamic Coaching and Consulting. I have a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership, a master's in social work, certification as an alcohol and substance abuse counselor, and a doctorate in social work public service leadership. Now, my story is about the fact that I used to be power walking in the boardroom, so to speak, while my personal life just totally crumbled all around me. I was suffering from the trauma of domestic violence, homelessness, sexual assault, and divorce. My whole personal life began to take a backseat to my professional life because I was using my professional life as a way to avoid the internal dynamics that were really driving the way that I was living my personal life, the decisions that I was making as far as relationships, the way I was showing up or failing to show up in relationships. And at some point after I spent 7 years writing the book, I healed enough to recognize that it didn't have to be all one or the other, that my professional life didn't have to always outshine my personal life, and that I was only as powerful in my calling and purpose as I was in how well I was navigating my personal life. And I learned that my professional life should never outshine my personal life. So let's get started with understanding the dynamics of how chaos, confusion, and trauma interact. What you're feeling. Well, I'm sure that many of us are feeling the same things. We're experiencing lost focus, insomnia, depression, anxiety, worry, and feeling overwhelmed and out of control. These are normal things that people generally experience when they're going through some kind of transition or emotional trauma. But when you have this chaos going around you, many times it'll trigger some deeper issues that may have gone unaddressed. And in the case of people that have previous trauma in their lives, something like domestic violence or sexual assault, or maybe you lost a parent when you were younger, there are lots of stressful things that can cause internal trauma throughout the life course. But I wanted to talk to you about the physiological first, and then the emotional dynamics with regard to that trauma. Now, the amygdala is the small almond-shaped part of your brain that plays a part in your emotion and behavior. It processes fear. It forms the memories of the fear-inducing event. So when you experience something that's traumatic to you, the amygdala is responsible for recording that event. And it remembers how you experienced that event at that time in your life. Now, this aspect of the brain is overactive in people with anxiety disorders. Now, the reason the amygdala is not necessarily your best friend when you are re-traumatized by life events is because it overrides the executive function of the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is highly developed in that it plays a role in the regulation of complex cognition, emotion, and behavioral function. Without the prefrontal cortex fully engaged, our brains can be hijacked by the amygdala, which can at will override the prefrontal cortex. As a result, it hijacks the entire higher functioning aspect of your brain. This can be a sudden, illogical, and irrational overreaction, such as we see many times with people who have post-traumatic stress syndrome. It's an involuntary fight or flight dynamic, and it, as I said, overrides rational thought. Now, the repercussions of stress on your body include reduced immunity. Right now, we all need our immunity intact. It increases your blood pressure, causes weight gain, and it also exacerbates any underlying physiological issues that we might have. We can be re-traumatized. We call that secondary trauma. In other words, what's happening in the here and now, yes, everybody on earth may be experiencing that. But for those of us that have previous trauma in our lives or abuse of some kind, or we've experienced some kind of major loss in our lives, then we can be thrown back into that trauma based on current events. When that occurs, it's like we're getting snatched back to the past by a big rubber band. In other words, I'm in the here and now. Yes, I am experiencing what's going on in the world, okay? Or maybe something new happens in my personal life. That's a challenge. But in that moment, I become prisoner to what happened in my past. So I'm not dealing with just the current situation. I'm dealing with the current situation and what occurred in the past. And it's a split-second thing where you begin to react to the current situation based on something you experienced in the past, and you are, for all intents and purposes, sitting in your past dealing with the here and now. And the reason why this is not good is because when you're caught up in that dynamic, it becomes very difficult to have a realistic view of the current event. And if you're reacting to a 2020 event based on a 1979 experience, then it's totally maladaptive and it's not helping you in this moment. Another thing that we're dealing with aside from re-traumatization is grief. Now, you can grieve anything. You can grieve the loss of a dream. You can grieve the loss of an expectation, the loss of a relationship, the loss of someone that you love. Grief is a real dynamic, and it comes in multiple stages, but at the same time, we never allow ourselves to understand that we could be grieving anything. Even the loss of a bad relationship, you could grieve. So we have to understand that when we are dealing with chaotic situations such as the one that we're dealing with now in the world, that we are grieving, people are grieving the loss of their freedom. They can't just come and go as they wish. They're grieving maybe the loss of a close relationship with somebody that they have to quarantine from. They're grieving the loss of a way of life, grieving the loss of a routine. There's major disruption on every level. And you should allow yourself to understand and lean into the various stages of grief as you go through this transition. Those stages include denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. But this is a ping pong game because you're bouncing off of any given stage of grief at any given time, and nothing occurs in order. So I wanted you to understand this dynamic, because if you understand what's going on in the background, then you can better address what you're feeling in the here and now. Now, the strategy, how to fight back.
Taught me to navigate people's minds. They can access your mind through your dreams. It's called Inception.
How do we get out? I'm hoping you have something more elegant in mind than shooting me in the head.
A kick.
What's a kick?
That feeling of falling that snaps you out of the dream.
This would be a kick.
Building a dream from your memory is the easiest way to lose your grasp on what's real and what is a dream.
Is that what happened to you? You gotta draw from stuff you know, right? That's your creation.
There's nothing quite like it.
If we're going to perform Inception, you need imagination.
You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
Did the children miss me?
Can't imagine. The seed that we plant in this man's mind will change everything.
This can't be done.
Dreams within dreams is too unstable. It is possible.
God, we should walk away from this.
The people that hired us won't accept failure.
This was not a part of the plan.
What's happening?
My subconscious is looking for the dreamer. Me? Quick, give me a kiss.
They're still looking at us.
Yeah, it's worth a shot.
PG-13 in theaters and IMAX July 16th.
Inception. This movie has so many hidden gems for anyone that's dealing with chaos that's out of their control and maybe re-traumatization. I have watched this movie over and over and over again because they go back into the subconscious through dreams. So they put I'll call it a victim. They put the target into this deep sleep subconscious state. They meet the target there. They learn about subconscious matters within that subject, okay, the target, and then they implant thoughts, subconscious thoughts that target will implement in their lives after they wake up. Now, they wake up totally unaware that this whole thing has happened. And they're totally unaware that they're operating under some false implantation. And in that situation, your mind is the scene of the crime. This is the same dynamic that occurs in us when the amygdala takes over our conscious higher thought. And so we're going to learn different things from this movie to show you how to take control of your own mind when trauma and fear and chaos tries to overtake you. When fear and anxiety have been extracted and incepted into your mind, extraction and inception, that's putting them under, learning what their subconscious thoughts are, supplanting the subconscious thought, and making that thought take over the living, awake life of the individual requires that in this movie, they extract what's there and they incept or add in or plant what they need that subject to do. And your past is the culprit. In Inception, there's a whole team of people that concoct this whole dream state and the architecture of that dream state, and they implant that thing. It's mission impossible, a psychological mission impossible. But in our lives, in the real life, our past is the culprit. And we are the targets. So your past has manufactured a false world and brought you into that false world. That world feels completely real, but only as long as you are in it. You don't have to stay in it. But if you're unaware of how this works, then you will be in it completely unaware. Inception. Your past has implanted an idea into your subconscious mind. It rules you without your knowing it when it is active. In this movie, DiCaprio's character says, what's the most resilient parasite? A bacteria? A virus? An intestinal worm? An idea. Once an idea is taken hold in the brain, it's almost impossible to eradicate. A person can cover it up, ignore it, but it stays there. So we'll talk about the power of thought. You see, an idea is like a virus, highly contagious, and an idea can grow. The smallest seed of an idea can grow to define or destroy your world. A simple thought that changes everything. So I'm going to teach you how to be the master counter-extractor in your own mind. It doesn't matter how many times you've been taken on this roller coaster ride by something in the past that overtakes you in a given moment. I'm going to teach you how to be the master counter-extractor of those subconscious hijacking fears and thoughts so that you can function at your highest in any given moment. The subject's mind can always trace the genesis of the idea. So in Inception, they know that if they are in this dream state, they lose themselves. So even though they're on this mission, they can lose themselves within somebody else's dream. And so one of the things that the characters say is that if you're sitting in a dream and you're wondering, am I dreaming? Am I not dreaming? Am I on the mission? Am I not on the mission? They say that if you cannot trace back the beginning of any given idea that you have, then you are generally probably within some such subconscious state that's a part of the mission. Because it's saying here, you can always trace the beginning of an idea. And that's what we're going to begin to do. We're going to trace the beginnings of the thought that has been incepted by our past. Okay? Now, look at what DiCaprio is holding here. You see that little top in his hand? Within Inception, they always had some personal object that they would use to help them to determine whether they were within that dream state or whether they were in reality. And for him, he used this top. Now, when he would spin that top, if he was in a dream state, the top would never stop spinning. So he knew he had to watch this top for a period of time to determine whether or not it stopped spinning. If indeed it stopped spinning, he knew he was in reality. If it failed to stop spinning, then he knew he was still in a dream state. So I want you to find a tangible action or object that grounds you in reality. At the moment where you begin to feel like you're no longer in control or feel like you're being hijacked, you're feeling fearful, overwhelmed, depressed, find a tangible action or object that grounds you in reality. Now, in Inception, they weren't supposed to let anybody else hold their object. Nope, this is my personal thing. This is personal to me. I chose this for a given reason. So this needs to be an action or object that's personal to you, that you will do the moment you feel triggered. This has to become rote knowledge. This has to be, you begin to do this. You may not feel like it at first, but you begin to do this on a routine basis, okay? Even if you only stay at this first level of counter-inception, you do this on a regular basis so that it becomes automatic to you. Feel yourself losing control, grab your tangible object, do a tangible action right then and there. You don't let it take any root. You just do it right then and there. These spinners are out here now. You can use one of these as a totem. So as I said, the thing has got to be unique to you, your choice, and it should be a tactical something that you can hold in your hands. Eventually, it might be something you can do physically. Just maybe you don't have to hold anything in your hand. Maybe it's just telling yourself, oops, I'm getting ready to get incepted here. No. Whatever it takes for you, I prefer that you have something tangible, but you don't have to. If it's an action you do, whether it's, okay, I'm going to stand up right now, I'm going to hug myself and tell myself everything's okay. That's something that's a tangible action that you take. You're going to keep this thing with you at all times. These people did not go into this dream state in this movie without having that available to them. One guy, we know DiCaprio had his cap, his top, but one guy had a pair of loaded dice. He knew how those dice were going to come up in reality, and if they failed to come up like that in the dreams, at all, then he knew that he was within a dream state. The whole point is to snap the heck out of it. You want to snap out of it right now. Okay? So you get your tangible item and then you move to the snap out of it stage. In the movie, it's called the kick. There was always somebody in the real world monitoring what was going on with the team in the dream state. And they had to have a way to automatically tell those people something's wrong. You got to come up out of that state now. You got to do it right now. And in the movie, it was this song that they played loudly enough that everybody in the dream state, everybody in that dream would hear it. And they would know that at that moment, they needed to snap out of it. For you, I want you to acknowledge that you're anxious. Half of our battle is when we refuse to accept how we're feeling, or we go into this long, judgmental, guilt-ridden, shame-ridden thing where we're judging ourselves for feeling that way. Well, no, that doesn't work here. So we're not even going to go there. We're going to acknowledge that we're anxious. We're going to understand that our brain is playing tricks on us, and we're going to reframe our perspective in the moment. How else can I look at this situation? So rather than to question yourself feeling like that, I want you to tap into your thoughts and question the thought. Okay? Use a calming visualization, whatever it is for you, whether it was back in the day when you went fishing with your grandfather and you want to imagine yourself in the canoe on the lake, okay, or on a beach somewhere, or think about someone you love dearly that gives you positive thoughts. I want you to use a calming visualization. And then the positive self-talk is what you're going to do when you draw on reframing the situation. So for instance, currently the whole world is having to isolate because of what's going on in the world. And for me, for instance, I'm cool with that. That's fine. No disruption to my normal life. But some people cannot take that. And sometimes they might begin to see that isolation as loneliness. I'm lonely. Okay? For me, I look at it as solitude. So if you're feeling loneliness, how can you reframe that situation and talk to yourself to make it look like it's more solitude than loneliness? Is it loneliness? I mean, you could FaceTime your mother, your brother, your sister, your friend, your lover. There are ways that we can use electronics to help us feel less alone. But if you look at it as if it's solitude, then that might lead you to go crochet or paint a picture. You don't have time to do this hobby or that hobby. Go pick up the guitar again. Play the piano. These are things that you would do in solitude as opposed to declaring to yourself that you're lonely and isolated and alone. In that moment, I want you to focus on right now. Right now. See, our challenge always becomes the fact that anxiety is generally grounded in our thoughts of the past, as we've already discussed, or our worries about the future. And quite realistically, you can't change the past. It's DOA. It's done. And our human propensity is to dwell in woulda, coulda, shoulda, didn't. And if we're sitting in the here and now worried about what if in the future, what if that, what if this, what if that, then we're just wasting what we have control over, which is our here and now. So you're going to focus on right now. Focus on meaningful activities. You get the choice here. I guess the point I'm trying to make is we get the choice. We get to choose how we focus in life. We have control over that on which we spend our thought lives. So I want you to focus on meaningful activities. Now, I'm going to share with you what's in your command zone. After you've done all of those previous things, first thing you're going to do is you're going to have your totem. You're going to pull yourself back off the brink of being out of control. You're going to reframe your thoughts and bring it back down to the here and now. And now that you've done that, the next step is you enter the command zone. What's in the command zone? The command zone puts you in control. In Inception, the character says conscious defenses are lowered and your thoughts become vulnerable to theft. It's called extraction. So they know that when their subjects are in a weakened state, and they can enter into that subconscious and they can extract that subconscious thought and replace it. And what you're going to do as the counter-extractor is you're going to root out all of those fake thoughts that have been implanted by your past and fear and trauma. And you're going to replace it with something. But to do that, you need to understand that your objective is to stop the status quo of anxiety and fear and hijacking of your mind. And you're going to do that by focusing on what you can control. What can you control? You can train your subconscious to defend itself from even the most skilled hijacking of your thought life. Okay? As the counter-extractor, you can train your subconscious to defend itself from even the most skilled fake extraction of your mind. But you have to be sure that what you're doing when you do that is you are going to step into this role by understanding that you can't change the past. You can reframe your interpretation of it, and you can reshape your beliefs to serve, support, nurture, and challenge you if you choose to. So that's what you do when you enter this command center. You're going to extract disempowering thoughts, and you're going to replace those disempowering thoughts with empowering thought. As I already said, you got the past, the future, and the present. Okay? If you're focused on the past, you're disempowering yourself. Any thought that keeps you focusing on the past is disempowering. On its face, don't go there. If you're worried about the future, understand that's a disempowering thought. Stop right there. Don't go there. Because your power exists in the here and now. Right where you sit, your power exists. And that's where you have to stay focused. You have to understand perception of a situation, circumstance, people, places, and things, versus the reality of the situation, people, places, persons, and things. Now, while you're doing this, you're going to be aware of confirmation bias, which clearly states this. Human condition here, y'all. Not judging. Just saying that if you've been caught up in disempowering thoughts from the past, or worried about the future, or the amygdala has hijacked your brain repeatedly, then you begin to believe those lies. Okay? Human condition. Now, once you believe the unrealistic interpretations that have been implanted or extracted into your brain, okay, then you will reject anything opposite of what you believe. You will reject any reality or truth that contradicts what you've been ingrained to believe over the years. Why am I emphasizing this? I'm emphasizing this because you have to be aware of it to fight it. It's not going to feel normal when you replace these thoughts. It's going to feel strange. It's going to feel uncomfortable. Nobody said this was easy, but it's worth it. So be aware of confirmation bias. Now, I want to explain to you the different spheres of influence and control in your life. You want to focus on what you can control. Okay? Do not focus on what you can't control. So I want you to imagine 3 circles. You have the little circle in the middle, you have the outer circle, and the little circle, the inner circle. So you got the big outer circle, which is blue. You have the, is that magenta? A magenta circle, which is a little bit closer to your inner circle. And you have the inner circle. What you cannot control is any of the outer circles. You have no control over that. So what happens is when we begin to focus on the areas we cannot control, then we begin to disempower ourselves in the moment. You're focused on what you cannot control and totally ignoring what you can control, which is your sphere of control. Understand this. Your sphere of control excludes everybody but you. There's nobody in this sphere but you. And that's the full extent of what you can control in a chaotic world or a chaotic situation. That's the extent of what you can control. But here's the good news. The extent to which you master your sphere of control determines the degree of influence you have in the outer circles. It's not a lost cause, but you can only influence those outer circles to the degree that you control your sphere of control. You have to master that. That's what I mean about what can you control, what can you not control. Focus on what you can control. And you can control your sphere of control, excluding everybody but you and including your thoughts, how you frame a situation, being fully aware of how your past has colored your view of current situations. So let's talk about the RIP strategy. R stands for root out the incepted thought. Root out what the amygdala has ingrained in your being. Identify its origins. Remember in the movie it says that you can trace anything back, any thought, any idea back to its beginning. That's what we're going to do, and I'm going to give you the tools to do that. And P stands for plant reality instead. So you're going to root out the incepted thought. You're going to identify its origins, and you're going to plant reality instead, so that all of the past trauma that's been running your life can rest in peace because you're in control now. So I've given you some things to help you, some tools to help you do this, but you're going to draw the line. Draw the line. You're going to draw a line, a straight line, and from the left will be your date of birth, your year of birth, and then progressing through the years to the current date. And you're going to just go through along this line, and on the top you're going to put defining moments that were positive in your life, and on the bottom you're going to put defining moments that were negative in your life, things that happened negative to you. And this is going to be a pretty, quick exercise. It's not going to take forever, but you might find yourself going back to this timeline and adding in things that you remember as you go through. That's drawing a timeline of your life. And then you're going to identify those defining moments by writing on a separate piece of paper. You're going to write at each good or bad situation that occurred. You're going to put the date that it occurred, approximate date, year, whatever. You're going to put the gist of what happened. But in this second part of your defining moments, in your defining moments, you're going to decide, what were the things you began to believe because of going through that? What beliefs have you come away with as a result of that? What do you believe about yourself and or others based on what you went through? And that's going to require you to go back and remember how you experienced that event in your life at whatever age you experienced it, and based on your understanding at that time. This doesn't really work when you necessarily go back to that event. Here you are 30 years out, you've done some growing, and you're an adult now. And then you're going back and looking at that event and judging it by what you know now. It's really more effective when you deal with it in that moment. If you were 9 years old and say, for instance, one of your parents passed away, then you want to talk about that moment based on how you felt at that time. And as you go through these defining moments, you're going to say, when was the first time you ever had the feeling or thought that invokes? Was that defining moment something that represents the first time you ever experienced that. Then coming back now to your current life, you're going to see how that's playing out in your current life, and you're going to ask, does what that make you, what you feel, is it appropriate to the here and now in the current situation? Okay. You're going to say, is it real or is it planted from the past? What's the origination of that idea, of that thought? Where does it begin? Because you have to understand its beginning to become the master extractor. And if it is from the past, it's probably not real. So go back, draw the line. You're going to put these dates in there as to what happened, good or bad to you, that were important events in your life. You're going to do the second part, which is determine what your defining moments were there, what ingrained itself into your psyche, into your person, into your belief system as a result of that thing. And then you're going to always refer back to this, because when you deal with challenging situations, you're going to want to go through the checklist you see here and determine, okay, am I being accepted here, or do I need to extract that crap and replace it with something that's real? And if you need to replace it with something realistic. A statement opposite of the incepted thought helps if you can't figure out what to do. If you're in a situation and you may not have time to, or you might need time to determine, okay, I've determined that this is an incepted thought that the past has slapped into my head. It is not real because nobody's dreaming here, okay? And you need to determine, okay, I know that that's coming from the past. This is a familiar feeling I'm getting. Does it apply to the current situation? No. Then what you need to do, generally, you cannot lose by concocting a statement completely opposite of what you're feeling in that moment. If you don't have time to go back and redo all this, hey, look, automatic. What's the opposite of what I'm feeling here? Okay? And go with that. All right. Go with that. You're pretty much going to be all right on decent ground if you just go with that in the moment. So, final recap. Past trauma and abuse distort your perception of reality. We can't erase what went on. I told you that. It's dead, gone, past. You cannot change it. It's just out of your control to change that now. But the power comes in. What can you learn about yourself in that? Okay? And how can you make that pain turn to power in the current situation? So you have experienced the past trauma. You have experienced the abuse. It's distorted your perception of the current situation, the here and now. Now, use what you learned from that to empower your ability to attack the disempowering thoughts that seems to want to breed in your life and replace it with an empowering thought. Just trust me, this can be done. You can reprogram yourself to recognize and conquer the fear and anxiety, but you have to recognize it first. You have to empower yourself in the moment, and don't second guess yourself, because you already know what that anxiety and fear and those incepted thoughts have done for you up to now in your life. And generally, they have not served you well. So this is a no-brainer. Just reprogram that thought, because it's fake. It's not real. Get the juice out of that by what did I learn about life, about myself? How can I use that in the here and now to attack the disempowering thought and to nurture empowering thoughts in my life, and then go at it? That's what being a master extractor is. Extract and replace false perceptions, period. Bottom line. Now, I'm giving you some free resources. I misspelled it there. You'll find a link to your personal timeline worksheet. Okay? You're going to find a link to your defining moments worksheet. And I'm also throwing in 5 healing steps to overcome abuse. It's a free ebook that I'm giving you because it pretty much will cover some of the things we talked about here, not within the framework of the movie itself, but it will help you to understand yourself and feel like you don't have to keep running from the past, because those are pearls of wisdom. That's you can extract power out of that. You can become powerful. And what I want you to understand is that there are people out there that, because of what you've been through, you are the only person on this earth that can walk them through what they're going through. Only you, because of your personal experiences, can walk a certain group of people through that are going through right now. But you're no good to them if you're running from your past, not acknowledging that you went through that, not embracing that, not leaning into that to the extent that it can empower who you are today. With the understanding that all of that is for a purpose, to walk somebody else through it so that they don't have to spend 30, 40 years like I did, stuck on stupid. But we can't meet people directly in their pain, at their point of pain, if we're still hurting. We can't really walk anybody through that if we're avoiding them because they're triggering something in us that we haven't dealt with. So the power becomes in accepting what you've been through, understanding you cannot change that. Also, that nobody that did you wrong in the past has any power to make it up to you, because it's in the past. Even if they want to, they don't have the wherewithal to make that up to you. And so you cannot put your whole healing life on hold, waiting for them to apologize, pay for what they did. None of that is in your control, and it's a disempowering. So with the idea that you have people that you need to reach to help them heal so they don't go through it as long as you did, understand that you can empower yourself and empower others in the here and now. All right, too true to tell. Don't be silenced by the shame that was never yours. One of the reasons why we don't even talk about what we went through, and trust me, you have to read the book, but I've been there, done that, is because I was totally afraid. I felt like I deserved being raped, for example. I felt like that I put myself in that position, and the old adage, you made your bed, you lie in it. So I didn't for 30 years tell anybody that I had been raped and sodomized. One of the things that kept me quiet was the shame that was never mine. The minute I separated myself from the act that was done to me, I began to see that that man had to own the wrong he did to me, that I didn't need to falsely take on responsibility for what he did to me. The minute I separated myself from that act like that, I began to heal. And you would think intelligent people walking around, degrees on the wall, would know, look, you didn't ask to be raped. That dude did that to you. But no, it don't work like that. I walked around with that trauma and ashamed to talk about it. Unless and until you talk about what you've been through, it's got its hand over your mouth, not allowing you to speak the power into the world. The minute you can speak to that thing and talk about that thing, its power over your life is immediately broken. And then you can walk into turning that pain to power. But unless and until you can, you're stuck there. Like I may as well have been stuck in that rapist embrace for 30 years because it had me totally on lockdown. I had no clue. I couldn't even finish the book until I acknowledged that that man had to own what he did to me. Until I removed myself from what he did to me and quit identifying myself by that wrong, I could not move forward. So Too True to Tell, it's on Amazon. Get that book. And also, whose apple is it anyway? When I refer to the book, this is the book that it took me 7 years and 6 days to write. And this book got me freedom from multiple layers of trauma and pain. I mean, until I was writing this book, they had no idea that I was suffering from PTSD, none of that. So the book came first, then the journal, which is on the right, and it is now also available in audiobook. I encourage you to get that book. It's going to have you laughing 1 minute, crying the next. I mean, when you read some of the dumb stuff I did, I mean, some of that stuff is funny. I still laugh to this day. So get the book. Also, I turned the book into an online webinar that walks you through a lot of the steps that we talked about. It comes with the workbook. You got the transcripts there. You got me available one-on-one if you need me. Check that out as well. There's a link below. And also, the worksheets that I'm giving you today come from this particular training, the GBS 360 Roadmap to Success. So you want to make sure that you click the link below and just go check it out. You might choose to indulge in that. I'm still tweaking it here and there. I think I want to make this a group session type of setup so that we are holding each other accountable as we walk through the training. But it's fully available online. Also, you can get it with the payment plan. I'm your transformation coach, Dr. Linda F. Williams, DSW. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, put it in the comments below, and I will get back to you. And I'm wishing you power out of your pain.